Hey YouTube, I'm about to start a new guitar project and I thought I'd make a video series about it. And the first step is really design, so I wanted to talk about that for quite a bit. When I start a guitar, I like to take a guitar I've made before, here's 3 of them that I play quite a bit, and just stare at it for a while and make a plan. So I kind of go from the tailpiece and go to the headstock. So of course you need to know what you're going to do for strap buttons, but right away you get to shape and wood. You know, what kind of wood are you using? Are you using maple, mahogany? Do you want a hollow body? What shape do you want? These are the decisions a lot of people think about. There are a lot of other minor decisions. On this guitar, I'm going to go with a shape that I've used on a couple of these guitars before, but I think I'm going to make it a little bigger with a bigger template. I'm going to go with a hollow body. Most of the body will be this thick, soft maple. So it'll be kind of like a Rickenbacker style guitar where it's semi-hollow body. But other than the body shape and the wood, you also need to think about what kind of bridge do you want. Do you want a tremolo? That'll affect how thick the body is and how you mount things. And if you have a tune-o-matic bridge, you're going to need a neck angle. We'll get into all that once we get to setting the neck and all of those kind of things. Of course, pickups matter. Do you want humbuckers? Do you want single coils? And do you want a pick guard? Because that'll matter how you mount everything. What kind of electronics do you want? Do you want tone controls, volume controls? What type of switching? Where do you want those switches to be? Again, a lot of decisions to be made, but if you stare at a guitar for a while, you can make a plan for all these things. And it's important to make this plan because the order in which you do things matters a lot. For example, if you're gluing a body together, this one has maple and mahogany, but I needed to route some channels before that wood went together so that I could get the ground wire from the top pickup down to the bridge. So there are little steps like that where if you do them in the right order and if you think it through, it makes a big difference. I really recommend writing down your entire process and running through it mentally. Another example is when you cut your fret slots. We'll do that in a little miter box, so it's good to have a nice square piece of wood to cut the fret slots into. So this is my fretboard here. I think it's some kind of rosewood that I ripped years ago. But I want that nice square edge so I can put it in my miter box and cut those slots nice and orthogonal to the side. Whereas if I taper my neck before I do that, then it's very difficult to get those parallel with each other. For the neck on this one, I'm going to go for a laminated neck. I've got some, I don't know if it's zirconi or what this, I've never worked with this wood before. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It might be zebra wood actually. But it's going to be laminated with some maple on the sides as well. So it'll have a dark strip up the middle and maple on the sides. Other decisions you need to make: scale length make a big difference. So Fender has a 25.5 inch scale length, I think, off the top of my head. And that's what I grew up playing, so I'm really accustomed to a 25.5 inch scale length. I like that much better. Gibson makes a 24 3/4, so this one's a Gibson scale, so it's a shorter, the strings are shorter. It just feels a little foreign in my fingers because I'm so used to the Fender scale. Other things to consider are how you're going to attach your neck. I've done a lot of set necks where you glue them in. I kind of like the look of that, but I also like the serviceability of a bolt-on neck. If you ever have to do serious surgery on your frets, then just taking the neck off and working with a neck's a lot easier. I talked about neck angle a little bit, so you need to put a neck angle in if you're trying to meet the strings at the top of a tune-o-matic bridge, which is taller than a typical Fender bridge. There's also a headstock angle you need to think about. Fender tends to make the headstock flat and then put string trees there to hold the strings down at the right angle. Gibson and others tend to do what's called a scarf joint. They actually cut it out of one piece of wood, but a lot of luthiers do scarf joints to tilt that headstock back. I actually prefer a tilted back headstock. So here's an example where I did a 6-in-line headstock, but I put a scarf joint in it like a Gibson, so I didn't need those string trees. I tend to like that design. I will say something about this series. It's going to take me a long time. It takes me months to build a guitar because I do it a month here and a month there. I'm not in any rush. I'm just building it for myself. So there's no deadline other than the ones I put on myself. And what I really enjoy about building the guitar is it's about 40 different steps, and each of those is very different from each other. So we'll work with flattening raw wood, and we'll work with routing out pickup cavities. We'll work with sawing fret slots. We'll work with doing the scarf joint on the neck, drilling tuner holes. Every one of these is a little bit different, so it always keeps it interesting. It doesn't have enough time to really get monotonous. unless you build a lot of them. I'm about 90% done mentally designing the guitar I'm about to build. It'll be similar to this one, which is a hollow body, except most of the body will be made out of a thick maple. The neck will be laminated. It'll have a rosewood fretboard just like this one. It'll be a Fender scale. And some of the hardware you need to make sure you have before you get started. I've been collecting in this bin here. You need a truss rod that will get embedded in the neck going down the front. Some of the things are pretty obvious. You'll need some whatever electronics you want. In this case, I'm going to do a 5-way switch like a Fender, and then some volume and tone controls. I will have some kind of Tune-o-matic bridge, and I'm going to try to put an arch top trapeze bridge at the end. I've never done a guitar like that, so I kind of want to try it. I like the look of those. I've got some inlay material. I'm not sure if I'll use it or not. On some of my guitars, I'll put an inlay on the 12th fret. I haven't quite decided what I'll do for inlays yet, but that can be decided a bit later. You just need to know when in the process you're going to do things like that. So, for example, you don't radius your fretboard and then do your inlays, because then you don't have a flat surface to work with. At least that's the way I like to do it. Of course, you need some fret wire for the neck. You need some tuners. I bought some 6-in-line tuners. And again, 6-in-line tuners are different from 3L, 3R, so know what type of headstock you want. And for pickups, I'm starting to come around to the setup of 2 single coils and then a bridge humbucker. So I bought these. These are from Guitar Fetish. Kind of a collection of hot wound humbucker in the bridge and more classically wound neck and middle pickups. And that way I can get that kind of strat quack, but I can also get a lot of high gain on the bridge. That tends to cover everything I want to play. Also, we mentioned pickup mounting. I'll likely do that with some pickup rings. You could also do that with a pick guard like I did over here and like Fender tends to do. A lot of this just looks, but it affects when in your process you should do different steps. So it's really good to think through all of these design aspects and write down your process. What are you going to do first? And I have that written down. I have a Google Doc that I reference all the time, and every time I build a guitar, I end up shifting a couple things around because I say, oh, it's easier to route the channel for the truss rod before I glue the wings on the headstock, because then I have a nice flat surface to reference. So again, think through your design, pick up a guitar you already have and stare at every part of it and think what you're going to do either differently or similarly, and make a plan. Don't just dive right into it. I'm excited for this series. It's going to take me a long time, but thanks for watching and hope you come along for the ride. Thanks.